Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump are expected to have their first face-to-face meeting since a Russian president and a U.S. president met in 2021, in an effort to find a way out of the Ukraine war that has lasted more than 3 years. But while the international political arena awaits a breakthrough, people in both Russia and Ukraine do not have high expectations. Is peace still too far away? The information surrounding the summit meeting between the two Russian and American leaders will be revealed in this video. Right now, let's move on to our main content.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump will meet in the coming days, Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov said on Thursday, August 7, in what would be the first summit between leaders of the two countries since 2021. The announcement came a day after Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, held talks with Putin in search of a breakthrough to end the Ukraine war. Trump has threatened new sanctions against Russia and countries that buy its exports if there is no deal.
Speaking about the Ukrainian matters, at the suggestion of the American side, an agreement was essentially reached to hold a bilateral meeting at the highest level in the coming days. That is, a meeting between President Vladimir Putin and President Donald Trump. We are now beginning with our American colleagues the concrete preparations together of the aspects of this meeting, as well as its location. I will note, by the way, the location has been agreed in principle. We will inform about it sometime later. As far as the option of a trilateral meeting to include Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is concerned, which for some reason was spoken about in Washington yesterday, this option was simply mentioned by the American envoy Witkoff during the meeting at the Kremlin. But this option has not been discussed in detail. The Russian side has left this option completely without any comment. We propose, first of all, to focus on preparing for a bilateral meeting with Trump, and we believe that the main thing is for this meeting to be successful and productive. It is common knowledge that yesterday, immediately after Witkoff's briefing, Trump called a number of leading European partners and spoke with them on this matter. I will point out that we too, via appropriate channels, have started to inform our closest partners and friends on the matters which had been discussed during aforementioned meeting with Witkoff. The target date for a Putin-Trump summit has been set for the next week, but as I mentioned right now, the parties have begun the preparations of this important meeting. It is difficult to say now how many days the preparations will take, but I repeat once again, the option to hold the meeting next has been considered, and we are quite positive about this option.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that the United Arab Emirates is one of the suitable places to hold a meeting with United States President Donald Trump.
Excuse me for interrupting such an interesting excursion, but in light of the recent news about your possible meeting with Trump, I would like to ask you, who was the initiator of this summit?
Both sides showed their interest. Who said what first does not matter.
Your aide said the meeting was likely to be held next week, but where? Could you at least hint at this place?
We have a lot of friends that are ready to help us organize such an event. Here is one of our friends. the presidents of the United Arab Emirates. I think we will decide later, but this could be one of the suitable venues.
And what about Zelensky? Will you hold the meeting with him?
I have been repeatedly saying that I, in general, have nothing against it. This is possible. But before that, certain conditions should be created. And unfortunately, we are still far from creating such conditions.
There has been no summit of US and Russian leaders since Putin and Joe Biden met in Geneva in June 2021. Russia went to war in Ukraine in February 2022, plunging relations into deep crisis. Trump has moved to mend relations with Russia and try to end the war, although in his public comments he has veered between admiration and sharp criticism of Putin.
We also note that there is a very important dialogue with the United States of America in various areas, and many of Russia's opponents are trying to disrupt this dialogue, trying to interfere with it, trying to misinform the U.S. leadership about various facts. And this dialogue allows Russia to clearly convey its position, for example, that the growth of the Russian economy has significantly exceeded the actual stagnation that is occurring both in Britain and in the EU economy, that Russia is coping very well with various forms of pressure on the Russian market, and of course that Russia is open to a creative and constructive dialogue with the United States. The summit between the Russian and U.S. leaders that is planned, we hope, for next week, of course, can become an important historical event, an event when Russia's position will be clearly conveyed to President Trump, and we hope that this dialogue will continue even more actively, including in the economic direction. We see that joint investments, including with U.S. investors, in projects in the Arctic, in rare earth metals, in infrastructure projects, can be mutually beneficial for both Russia and the United States. And we see that we can also develop joint investments in technology companies and many others. Of course, as the dialogue bears fruit, it will also bear economic fruit. We have talked about how American companies have lost over $300 billion by leaving the Russian market. We see significant interest from American companies to return, and accordingly we believe that restoring the dialogue between Russia and the United States will also bear good economic fruit for both Russian companies cooperating with American companies and American investors who want to actively enter the Russian market.
Meanwhile, residents of Mariupol, a city in eastern Ukraine currently controlled by Russia, express little optimism about a peace agreement emerging from the meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump. Mariupol, a port city that once had over 400,000 residents before the conflict, has been under Russian military control since May 2022. Speaking to Reuters, Sergei, who only provided his first name, said he no longer trusts President Trump.
Trump supplied weapons to Ukraine during the truce and now imposes sanctions against Russia's partners. How is it possible to negotiate with him? I do not know. Putin is not that silly so as to allow someone to play games with him as if in kindergarten. Moreover, he has such a powerful state behind him.
They have millions of topics to talk about. We hope that this conflict will come to an end. This is the main thing. As for an accord, I do not think it is going to happen. They will agree about their own diplomatic issues. As far as we are concerned, there is nothing to expect, I think.
Probably they will negotiate about a peace deal. They must agree by all means.
I do not see any reason to hope for it. I do not see any specific moves on Trump's part. I think there may be no meeting at all.
There is only one matter. Trump desires a peace deal in order to get the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants everything to be on his terms. But I think there won't be a positive decision this time, because Putin has his own agenda. We all know it. To prevent the expansion of NATO. Trump does not care about it at all. Trump is an interesting person. You and me, we all know it. He pursues his agenda. He stands for his country, to make it richer, more powerful, to remain the leader in the world. And Putin has his own agenda, to end the encircling of Russia by NATO.
U.S. President Donald Trump affirmed he would meet with his Russian counterpart, even if Putin refuses to meet the Ukrainian president. This statement from Trump contradicts reports in the U.S. media, which cited White House officials saying that a meeting between Putin and Zelensky is a prerequisite for a summit between the U.S. and Russian leaders. Since taking office in January, Trump has been pushing for negotiations to end the Ukraine conflict. He has recently increased pressure on Russia, setting a deadline for Moscow to accept a ceasefire agreement by August 8th or face sanctions.
What outcomes do you think the meeting between the two leaders will bring? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated with our in-depth analysis.